Hello, friends. Part two of your podcast on Chapter 6 in the regular stats book. Probably the biggest idea in this chapter, and one of the biggest ideas in the entire course, is that you thoroughly understand double blind experiments. Going back to our example from page 86, again, the point is that neither the people receiving a treatment nor the people measuring the results of the treatment are aware of who's getting what treatment. And you can do this by using codes. You can tell the subjects that you're measuring something other than what you're actually measuring. You can do, in terms of the rating the data, you can give the subjects codes. But if your experiment is going to be valid, you have to be double blind as much as possible. Now, if we go back to the fish example, of course, the fish don't know what food they're getting. They don't understand this. So in this case, I wouldn't need to be double blind because the fish already don't know what's going on. But in this example, I would want to be single blind because I would not want the person weighing the fish to know which fish received which food. This is a section of the book that you should read carefully because it's really important, and a good number of the questions on the next test will involve applying the idea of double blind in different situations. So just to tidy it up, double blind in a nutshell just means that neither the subjects nor the people who measure the treatment know which treatment each subject received. Now, we've talked already a lot this year about the placebo effect. Again, if you don't know what a placebo is, it's a fake treatment. It's something that's given that looks just like the actual treatment that you're evaluating, but it has no effect. The placebo effect is like what happened here. When they wanted to help balding men keep their hair, they gave them a placebo. Again, that is a treatment that has no effect. And one study found that 42% of the balding men increased the amount of hair on their heads when they took a placebo. So you could almost say they willed more hair onto their head by thinking that they were getting a treatment. This is another amazing one here. They told 13 people who were very sensitive to poison ivy that the stuff being rubbed on one arm was poison ivy. It was a placebo. So they were getting fake poison ivy on the one arm, but all 13 broke out in a rash because they thought it was poison ivy, even though it wasn't. The stuff rubbed on the other arm really was poison ivy, and they were told it was harmless, and only 2 of the 13 developed a rash. So the reason we use fake treatments is that even treatments that really don't have any effect can psychologically cause uh, changes that we could measure, change those response variables that we're measuring. So if a treatment really works, the effect that it has should be greater than the effect of the placebo, whatever it is. So really another important idea for the whole course, particularly for this chapter, you got to know what placebo is and you got to know what the placebo effect is. Starting on page 104, you have an explanation of some things that can mess up your experiment. Um, and these are pretty straightforward. I don't think I need to spend a lot of time. People that refuse to participate in the experiment, those are refusals. Non-adherers, people that are in the experiment but do not follow the directions. In other words, they don't get the same of all the environment as everyone else. So maybe they're not supposed to smoke and they do, or maybe they're not supposed to exercise and they do, or maybe they're only supposed to sleep 8 hours and they sleep 10. Could be anything. But if they don't follow directions, it biases your results. And then dropouts are just what they sound like. They start the experiment, but then they quit partway through. Page 104, you have this example. I want to just point out clinical trials because that's a phrase that comes up a lot. Clinical trials are carefully conducted experiments in a lab that are done that involve medical experiments. And we're going to talk about generalizing in a minute. But clinical trials just means that I do a carefully run study to compare treatments. And if the results are valid, I should be able to replicate them with different groups in different ages in different places. We'll pick up in the next part.